Unless you've been living under several tons of rock the last few years, you've probably begun to notice something about the Star Wars fandom. Allow me to start by saying that fandoms have always been incredibly passionate, and that's what makes them so great. But it also makes them incredibly volatile. I'm sure you've heard phrases such as "no one hates Star Wars as much as Star Wars fans." There has always been a certain degree of vitriol from fandoms in response to a movie or a show that they perceive as poor. But in recent years, this has exploded into an inferno of discourse that has become less and less civil with every passing project, spreading into nearly every single fandom from across all genres. In today's video, I want to look at why this is happening and what I believe was the inciting incident. It is 2017. Hype is building within the Star Wars fandom for the release of The Last Jedi, a movie that has been hyped up by Lucasfilm itself as being the next Empire Strikes Back. The studio was so confident in this film that they went ahead and gave director Rian Johnson his own Star Wars trilogy to develop at Lucasfilm sometime down the line. And let me stop right here and emphasize something. This is not normal. Typically, a studio will wait for the results of a project before then greenlighting a director's trilogy, because trilogies ain't cheap yet. For Lucasfilm to do this before Rian Johnson's first Star Wars movie came out displayed an incredible vote of confidence in The Last Jedi, and fans took note. And why wouldn't they? The Last Jedi must truly be special if Lucasfilm is willing to tie themselves financially to Johnson for the foreseeable future. And then...
Ladies and gentlemen, we got him.
My point is that this movie triggered a chain reaction so powerful we're still feeling the effects of it today in full force. It was truly with this film that the Phantom Menace was born. Channels were made, literally made off of the flaming pile of controversy that was The Last Jedi. I'll admit it, in the aftermath of The Last Jedi's release, I absolutely indulged on rants and rage videos, watching them back to back to back as a way to commiserate with those who also hated the movie. It was cathartic, and while I do believe that it helped me move past my hatred of The Last Jedi, I eventually lost interest in those kinds of videos. They grew to be exhausting. My anger turned to apathy as I waited for Star Wars to eventually return to form. Flash forward 5 years, and it seems that the Star Wars fandom is in a constant state of civil war. With every new project, there's one side who vehemently and loudly rips it apart, and then there's another side who staunchly defends it as the next best thing. I tend to believe that neither is true on any given project, but it always feels like my voice and others like me are drowned out by the screaming matches between the two extremes. And this is the problem. The Star Wars fandom has become shaped by two extremes, and those of us who don't fall into either one of those categories are frankly exhausted from all the fighting. It is okay to not like the newest Star Wars show, but do you really have to bitch and moan about some perceived woke agenda at every opportunity? I mean, good lord, what a miserable existence. When I look back on the several months I consumed the Last Jedi hate videos, I remember how tiring it all was. Being angry is exhausting, and these people manage to do it perpetually. On the other hand, it's okay to love the newest Star Wars show. In fact, I'm very happy if you did. But that doesn't mean you get to accuse those who did not of not being real fans and dismiss their fair criticism of the show. No one likes a gatekeeper. I just feel like the extremism and tribalism in our politics and our society has seeped down into our pop culture and our fandoms. These are spaces we're supposed to be able to go to escape politics and the troubles of reality, but instead these spaces have been invaded by them. I do tend to mostly blame the Phantom Menace for all of this. They are by far the loudest and angriest sect of the fandom, spouting about woke agendas whenever they get the chance, and getting upset every time there's a person of color in a major role. They hang on every little flaw a Star Wars show or movie has, and beat it like a dead horse. But every villain has their origin story, and what if I told you that the Phantom Menace as we know it was created by Lucasfilm itself? You see, following the release of The Last Jedi, I'm not sure Lucasfilm and Rian Johnson could have handled the backlash worse than they did. They went on the offensive, criticizing fans, calling them things like man babies and racist, and so on and so forth. It was the messiest aftermath to a film's release that I have ever seen. Lucasfilm radicalized a portion of the fandom who hated The Last Jedi. Those people never forgave them and are still fighting that same fight 5 years later. The Phantom Menace is in part Lucasfilm's own doing, and I'm sure that if they could do it over again, they'd have simply remained silent, or, preferably made a better trilogy. Instead, they gave the Phantom Menace the fuel it needed to erupt and stick around, and it has been a thorn in the studio's side ever since. So, where do we go from here, huh? In the words of the loquacious Newt Gunray, this is getting out of hand. Is it possible to even mend this old wound? I don't think so. I think the damage is too great. Other fandoms like Marvel and Lord of the Rings are already starting to experience similar problems. The sides are too far apart. Respectful discourse appears to be beyond the pale. The conventional answers of how to repair the damage would be for Lucasfilm to just make great Star Wars. But that's subjective, and even that doesn't seem to matter. Fans will always find a way to be upset, reasonably or not. I do think it would help though. The first season of The Mandalorian was about as peaceful as the Star Wars fandom has been since The Last Jedi. And make no mistake, the Phantom Menace is a minority. If Andor, for example, is amazing, they will seem a lot quieter than they were during the Book of Boba Fett or Obi-Wan Kenobi, even though they'll still be shouting. As for what the rest of us can do, well, honestly, just be decent. One of my subscribers, Charlie, and if you're a regular here, you'll probably know him, is the perfect example of a great Star Wars fan. Charlie is a pretty positive dude and tends to enjoy everything Star Wars. I have done my fair share of criticizing Star Wars on this channel, from the Book of Boba Fett to the Bad Batch, and Charlie has been nothing but respectful of my opinions, even if he disagrees. If more fans were like Charlie, this fandom would be a merrier place.